Tonight, don't stop voter registration, court orders INEC, following suit by Sarah. We did not buy votes, Governor-elect of Ekiti State, Biodun Oyebanji says after meeting President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa. Well, hello everyone and welcome to Politics Today. I am Terry Ikumi, standing in for Sheun Okimbaloye. Now, following widespread allegations of vote buying in Saturday's election in Ekiti State, the governor-elect Biodun Oyebanji has said that neither he nor the All Progressives Congress was involved. Instead, according to him, he canvassed for votes that saw him emerge as winner. Speaking to State House correspondents after a visit to President Muhammadu Buhari in his office, led by the APC National Chairman Abdullahi Adamu, he said he did not witness any vote buying in the polling unit where he voted, insisting that he won the poll based on his previous performance as secretary to the state government in the state. The national chairman of the APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, also affirms that the allegation of vote buying was raised by aggrieved persons who lost at the poll.
I will speak for myself. I canvassed for votes. I had a manifesto that I unveiled to Ekiti people, and I canvassed based on that manifesto. And I'm a part of a government that has done so well. The last time I was here, I said that if performance will be an indicator for electoral success, that we have nothing to fear. So as far as we are concerned in APC, we did not involve in vote buying, but we've done so well, and we have a manifesto that pleases our people.
Now, for more political stories, here's your political roundup for the day.
A former Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs and chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Godsdill Rubebe, has resigned from the party. He made this known in a letter dated June the 20th and addressed to the party's national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu. He said in the letter, "I am, by this letter, intimating you of my total withdrawal from all activities at the ward, local, state and national levels of the PDP. Mr. Rubebe said after the party lost power to the All Progressives Congress in 2015, he hoped that it will use the opposition period to re-strategize and take back power at the earliest opportunity. The four principal officers of the Kogi State House of Assembly who were impeached on Friday, June the 17th on the floor of the House have faulted the process, saying that they were not aware of any impeachment and suspension, as it was the Speaker, Matthew Kolawole, who was earlier impeached by 90 members of the Assembly. Speaking with Channels Television in an interview, the impeached Majority Leader of the Kogi State House of Assembly, Abdullahi Bello Balogun, describes the action of the House as laughable, saying the House does not sit on Fridays and that there was no proclamation to that effect, neither was there a notice of an emergency sitting of the House.
Like I said, the House of Assembly is shut, and I'm not aware of any sitting today.
In its effort to resolve the ongoing crisis within the All Progressives Congress in Abia State, the party is holding stakeholders meeting with all aggrieved members and factions to help resolve their differences and re-strategize ahead of the 2023 general elections. At a stakeholders gathering held in Ntalako Boroikwano local government area of Umuahia, ward leaders across the 17 local government areas, including the deputy minority leader and others were present, but the former Minister of Mines and Steel, Uche Oga, was absent. This meeting, termed Ntalako Declaration, is at the instance of the party to help resolve all disharmony with the agenda to win the 2023 elections.
Coming together of the old brigade and the new brigade and forming one single APC that will take us to the government house come 2023.
As the Zamfara State government declared a work-free week to enable the state public and civil servants to register and obtain their permanent voter cards, residents of Gusau, the Zamfara State capital, have trooped out en masse to register for the PVC at the Gusau local government office of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Many residents decried inadequate manpower and delay in capturing machine, calling on the Electoral Commission to deploy more staff and functioning capturing machines to the registration center to enable more people to register in the state capital.
This is my fourth time coming here since last month, May. to this month. This is my fourth time coming here. They told me, I know that that people were registering online, but they told me that no, I can't do anything online. I have to do everything here.
And the coalition of Yoruba support groups is drumming support for the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, asking all prominent sons and daughters, including monarchs in the southwest, to rally around his candidacy. President of the group, Mr. Oladoto Hassan, told journalists at the news conference in Abuja that the APC presidential candidate has the solutions to Nigeria's problems, including insecurity, unemployment, and other economic challenges.
These are no times for ethnic and political opportunists to take advantage of our precarious situation. We therefore settle for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, presidential candidate of All Progressive Congress, as our next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria come 2023.
Well, welcome back. You're watching Politics Today. Justice Mobolaji Olajuwon of the Federal High Court in Abuja has stopped the Independent National Electoral Commission from ending the voter registration exercise on the 30th of June 2022. Justice Olajuwon granted an order of interim injunction following the hearing of an argument on motion ex parte by Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. SERAP and 185 other concerned Nigerians had earlier this month filed the lawsuit against INEC, asking the court to declare unconstitutional, illegal and incompatible with international standards the failure of the electoral body to extend the deadline for voter registration to allow eligible Nigerians to exercise their rights. Now, in that suit, SERAP had asked the court for an order restraining INEC, its agents, privies or anyone else claiming through it from discontinuing the continuous voters registration exercise from the 30th of June or any other date pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice. The suit has been adjourned till the 29th of June 2022 for hearing of the motion on notice for interlocutory injunction. The suit was because INEC had extended the deadline for the conduct of primaries by political parties by 6 days from the 3rd of June to 9th of June. But the Commission failed to also extend the online registration, which ended on the 30th of May, and the continuous voter registration CVR ending on the 30th of June 2022. Now, SERAP had filed at the Federal High Court, Lagos, and transferred to Abuja, asking the court to determine whether the failure of INEC to extend the deadline for voter registration is not a violation of Nigeria's constitution, the Electoral Act, and the international standards as well. SERAP is asking the court for a declaration that failure of INEC to extend the deadline for voter registration is a violation of eligible Nigerians' rights to participate freely in their own government, equality, and equal protection. And is also asking for an order of mandamus to direct and compel INEC to extend the registration by a minimum of 3 months and take effective measures to ensure that eligible Nigerians are able to register and vote in 2023. Well, let's get to the conversation now on the extension of the judgment on the extension of the registration, as well as the Ekiti State governorship election. I'm being joined in the studio by INEC's Head of Voter Education and National Commissioner, Festus Okoye, and virtually by Barrister Kolawole Oluwadare. He is the Deputy Director of SERAP. He joins us from Lagos. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Let me begin with Kolawole. It was your suit that led to this judgment. I'd like to find out from you what your thoughts are on that judgment. I'm sure that you're excited by it, no doubt, but what does it mean for Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Terry. As you would expect, we are elated by this judgment, not because it is in interest in favor of SERAP, but because it is the interest of Nigerians, particularly the teeming electorate, not those who have registered and those who are yet to register. And so the import of this ruling, it's a ruling, pardon me, not a judgment, since it's interim in nature, is that it allows multitude of Nigerians who have not been able to register as electorate and who really want to participate in the 2023 elections to participate. We are quite aware, like our lawyers have told us, that this is an interim injunction. It is by no way conclusive. And that is why we're looking forward to the hearing of the motion on notice on the 29th of June. But be that as it may, it means that this is good news for Nigerians who have been on queues intermittently, really, on end to register to vote. And that means ultimately we would have a lot more numbers of electorates in the political pot, so to speak, who would decide ultimately those who represent us, the nationals, in all offices come 2023.
So you said that INEC, the deadline as it is right now, violates international standards. What standards are you referring to? And also you said that it also violates the Electoral Act as amended. What portion of the Electoral Act does it violate?
Thank you, Kerry. The laws are very clear and explicit, and I don't think that INEC is not oblivious of the Electoral Act, which is the main instrument that guides the affairs of INEC. And the role of INEC is clearly demarcated in the Constitution in many places, including in paragraph 15, part 3 of the Constitution, that is 1999 Constitution. And part of what INEC does as part of its role as an electoral umpire is to ensure that the electorates are adequately registered. And this unique exercise, which is the continuous voter registration, is done as part of those statutory duties of INEC. But more particularly, looking at the Electoral Act, Section 9 is very clear. And one need not be a legal practitioner to understand the import of Section 9, Subsection 6 of the Electoral Act 2020, which clearly says that these kind of continuous voter registration need not stop not less than 90 days before the election. And by simple calculation, the election is more than 90 days away. The earliest election will come up in February 2023. So why is INEC in a rush, so to speak, particularly looking at what INEC had done to extend the period for primaries of political parties? So it's only natural that electorates, being a very important stakeholder in the electoral process, should also get the same treatment.
Let me go to Mr. Okoye now. It's nice to see you again, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I haven't seen you in ages. Let me get your reaction to that court's judgment. Yes, it's an interim injunction, no doubt. However, INEC had also talked about the possibility of extending this deadline. So what's your thought on that judgment?
Well, ordinarily, I would have preferred to refrain from making any comment in relation to the ruling of the court, because as a lawyer, I know that the moment a matter is before a court of law, it becomes sub judice, and no one is supposed to make comments or say anything that will prejudice the hearing of the matter. Now, the attitude of the commission is very clear. This particular commission will do anything that will add value to the democratic and electoral process. And this commission is determined to also ensure that all eligible Nigerians have an opportunity of registering and also have an opportunity of showing up on election day to exercise their democratic franchise. At the Youth Vote Count 2.0 in Lagos, the chairman of the commission made it clear that all options are on the table relating to the voters' registration process and appeal to all registrants or eligible registrants to become and exercise patience and conduct themselves in a manner that does not disrupt the electoral process. And he also promised that a few days before the end of the registration process, that the commission will meet and review the situation and make a decision or a determination that will be in the best interest of the Nigerian people. Not only that, because of the surge we recorded in places like Lagos, Kano, the 5 states of the Southeast, and Oyo, the commission deployed an additional 209 IVED machines, thermal printers, and fingerprint scanners to these places to obviate the surge that occurred in these places. That is the action we have taken. Now, let me also say this, that this continuous voters registration exercise has been ongoing for 1 year. We started the online pre-registration on the 28th day of June, 2021, and then started the physical registration in July 2021. So the online has been going on for over a year now, for 1 year. And within this particular period, sometimes our registration officers register one single individual per day. Now, for each day our registration officers spend registering voters, it also has financial implications. This is not a fresh registration. This registration is meant for only persons who have never registered before and those who have attained the age of 18. These are the ones that are supposed to engage in this continuous voters registration exercise. Persons who seek to do transfer, those whose PVCs are damaged, those whose PVCs are lost, those who want to review information relating to their age, address, and so on and so forth, are not obligated to register again. So I think that this clarification is very, very important, because people who have registered before still go to the registration centers to go and register again. But having said that, I want to say that this commission will go before the Federal High Court on the 29th day of June to go and explain his position. It will be a futile exercise to do CVR ad infinitum. And then at the end of the day, we will not be in a position to display the register for claims and objections. At the end of the day, we will not clean up the register and remove double and multiple registrants. And then at the end of the day, we will not be in a position to print and make available for collection the permanent voters' cards of all those who have registered. These are all the things we need to do in relation to the registration exercise. So the cutoff period of 90 days does not presuppose that we must let everything to stop until that 90 days. There are a variety of things we need to do before that particular period in order to get our voters register up to speed. We have 8,809 registration areas. The implication is that we are going to display the voters register in all these places. We have 774 local governments. The implication is that we are going to display the voters register in all these places. And then at the end of the day, subject the voters register to our own processes and our procedures. So what we are saying is that, yes, we recognize the fact that it is the constitutional and legal right of people to register. We also recognize the fact that it will add value to our electoral process if we get as many Nigerians as possible to register. But we cannot do CVR ad infinitum, and we cannot be registering people who have registered before. So I think that Nigerians should exercise patience, be calm, and then at the end of the day, the commission will do whatever it takes to improve the registration process, and also do whatever it takes to add value, that we add value to the democratic and electoral process.
But it would seem that INEC appears to be overwhelmed by the registrations so far. You say that you need time to put certain things together, eliminate waste, eliminate double registrations and all that. But then the Electoral Act is clear. There's a 90-day period, at least ultimatum, before you can put a stop to the CVR registration process. On what premise is INEC hinging its decision beyond the law to insist that it may not extend this voter registration?
No. Look at the issue holistically. Let us just assume that the law says we should stop the updating, review, and registration 90 days to the period. And then we allow this voters registration, this CVR, to go on to that last day. The implication is that we will not be in a position to display the voters register for claims and objections. That's one. Secondly, the second implication is that we will not have an opportunity of cleaning up the voters register to remove double registrants. As we are aware, when we clean up the voters register relating to those who register between the 28th day of June 2021 and 14th day of January 2022, we found out that 46% of those who registered were invalid registrants, and we had to remove them. So the implication is that if we go on the way you are presuming we should go on, we may go into the 2023 general election with over 50% of invalid registrants.
But wouldn't
CB on the voters register.
But does that not also answer the fact that INEC seems to be overwhelmed? And if you say that you may not have time for all this, wouldn't it be best if you created more centers, provided more machines and men to increase, to speed up the registration process instead of shortening
Understand the point I'm making. This registration started in June 2021. And I'm telling you that during this particular period, sometimes our registration officers register one individual a day. It is only in these last 2 weeks that the voters' registration is about to end that we have this surge. But this thing has been going on for over 1 year. But despite all these things I have said that this particular commission will do anything that will add value to the electoral and democratic process.
So does this mean that INEC, from this judgment,
yes,
is considering extending
Well, the court has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission to come back on the 29th day of June and explain its position. We are going to go back to the court on that 29th day of June to explain our position and then allow the rest of the issues to be determined by the court. But the commission is a constitutional body, and we are under a constitutional obligation to give effect to judgments and orders of properly constituted court of law. And we are going to give effect to the orders made by the Federal High Court.
But beyond late interests, as you have pointed out,
yes,
is the commission having a challenge with registering the number of people that have come forward? And what's the commission doing to ensure that that's checked?
Well, as at now, as I pointed out, we deployed additional 209 machines to areas of pressure. There are states that do not have pressure. So we really don't need to do anything in relation to states where we don't have any form of pressure. And in some of the states, some local governments do not have pressure. So the resident electoral commissioners and the electoral officers have withdrawn some machines from local governments that do not have pressure, and then increase the number of machines to local governments where we have some level of pressure. We are going to have a youth concert on Saturday. And as of today, the commission has deployed 40 IVED machines to the old parade ground, where we are going to do voters registration exercise up till Friday before the concert takes place on Saturday. So we are doing our best to make sure that we obviate the present surge and the present challenge. And we are confident that we're on top of the situation. But we will continue, we will keep on monitoring the situation to see how things progress. And depending on how things progress, the commission will make a determination.
What's the commission doing to address the concerns of Nigerians and allegations of complacency and inducements from your staff? There are instances where Nigerians who have gone to register have said that they go to these centers and your staff refuse to attend to them until certain inducements are made. Some people have had to buy fuel for some of your centers. What's the commission doing to address this? Because to an extent, you would agree that certain attitudes of your staff could be responsible for the delayed registration process in some areas.
Well, we train our staff to be very professional. We train our staff to be ethical, and also we train our staff to take into consideration the fact that those who are coming for registration are coming from different backgrounds, with different tendencies, with different attitudes, and we've been training them to be very calm and very courteous to registrants. In the few places where we have received reports of unethical conduct by our staff, we have withdrawn our staff from those areas and we have queried them, and appropriate disciplinary action will be meted out to them. And so we are not going to condone any of our staff engaged in unethical conduct or engage in a conduct that we consider against our rules and regulations.
There are also concerns about the collection of the PVC. How are you addressing that?
Well, there are two categories of PVCs that are in question. The PVCs that remained uncollected from the previous elections, and also the new PVCs that have been printed for those who registered during the first and second quarter of the CVR. For those who registered during the first and second quarter of the CVR, the rate of collection has been very, very high, and people have been coming to collect them. But the rate of collection of the PVCs that we are quarantined and brought out after the 2019 general election has been very, 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 very low. But in terms of the collection of PVCs for this particular period, it has been very high. Unfortunately, there are some people who engage in multiple or double registration who still go to our local government offices and registration area centers to go and demand for their PVCs. But we didn't print the PVCs of those who engage in double or multiple registration because the previous PVC is still valid, and what we expect them to do is to do the needful and rectify whatever challenge they have rather than going to go and register afresh. Now, in our online registration portal, we have only, out of the 7 services, we suspended only 1. And the one we suspended is the one relating to pre-registration for new voters. If you want to do transfer from one state to the other, or from one local government to the other, or from one registration area to the other, or from one polling unit to the other, you can still do it online. If you want, if your PVC is damaged, or your PVC is lost, or your PVC is defaced, you can still go online and rectify it. If you want to correct any data relating to your date of birth, address, and so on, you can still go online and do that correction. we suspended only one service. So people should not troop to the registration centers to do things that they can just do in the comfort of their homes.
Let me ask you this question. How quickly can these PVCs be ready, especially those who are just registering now? And also, is there a time lapse for persons who had probably registered a while back and then now they're trying to get their PVCs? Is there a time lapse for them? Can they still get those PVCs?
They can still get the PVCs. The PVCs of those who registered before and who have not collected their PVCs.
How far before?
From anybody who registered with the Independent National Electoral Commission and who has not collected his or her PVC, the PVC must be lying down in any of our local government offices. So they can go and check that their PVCs are there. For those who registered during the first and second quarter, their PVCs are ready. And they are both in our local government offices and some of our registration officers who are going from one registration area or what to the other have these PVCs, and people can approach them and collect their PVCs for each one. Now, for those who registered during the third quarter and those who are registering during this fourth quarter, the Commission has promised that their PVCs will be ready well ahead of the election. Because we do not want a situation where people will make all the efforts to register, and then at the end of the day, the PVCs will be printed very, very late, and they will not be in a position to collect these PVCs and exercise their democratic franchise. And that's why we want to tidy up issues relating to the CVR, clean up the voters register, make sure that we have claims and objections, and then print these PVCs and then deploy massively for purposes of PVC collection. But if we go too far into the period and go too near to the 2023 general election, we may be caught up in other activities of the Commission, and the issue of making the PVCs available may become slightly problematic, and we do not want to get to that extent.
But then what's the Commission doing to ease the process of collection of these PVCs? I mean, in the same location, you find people coming to receive their PVCs, you find people coming to register, and the whole place is crowded. And for a number of persons, you know how for your driver's license, you get a notification that your license is ready and for collection. Is the Commission considering something like that to ease the process?
For those who registered during the third quarter, and for those who are registering now, the moment their PVCs are ready, the Commission will send bulk SMS to them, and for those who have email addresses, the Commission will also send email addresses to them to the effect that their PVCs are ready. And then in our portal, we also have a PVC locator that you can use to locate where your PVC is and locate whether your PVC has been printed or not. So we are going to put all options on the table to make sure that as many registrants as possible come forward to collect their PVC.
Very well, then. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Ekiti State governorship election. INEC beats its chest that it's conducted a very credible election. We will know about that in a bit. My guests will still be hanging on. Professor Okoye, the head of INEC Voter Education and National Commission of INEC, as well as Mr. Barrister Kolawole Olaju Oluwadari, who is the Deputy Director of SERAP. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Politics Today. My guests are still on standby. INEC's head of Voter Education and National Commissioner Festus Okoye, as well as Barrister Kolawole Oluwadari, who's the Deputy Director of SERAP. Let's talk about the Ekiti governorship election now. I see you all smiles already. Let me hear it. What's your assessment, self-assessment of INEC?
Well, I think that the Nigerian people have done their assessment. The domestic and international observers have done their assessment, and the media have done their assessment. And from what I read on the pages of newspapers and from the reports I have, they have enjoyed the election as free, fair, transparent, and inclusive, and also peaceful. So we will remain with the assessment made by the Nigerian people in relation to the Ekiti governorship election.
When you talk about assessment, assess it with the new Electoral Acts, because this came to play for the first time at this level with the Ekiti governorship election. What did the Commission do differently, considering the new Electoral Act as amended?
Well, the timetable and schedule of activities for the Ekiti governorship election was released before the coming into force of the Electoral Act 2022. And now, when the Electoral Force 2022 came into force, then we keyed in into the processes and procedures prescribed by the Act. The first thing we really did in relation to the Ekiti governorship election was to get our deployment right in terms of deployment of staff and also in terms of deployment of materials for the election. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission was in Ekiti twice, and he met with the leadership of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, both the state officials and their national officials, because we wanted to get our deployment right. And I think that that was key to the early deployment of materials, especially to the various polling units. Secondly, we also made sure that the beavers, that we did what we call mock accreditation in the 3 senatorial districts of Ekiti State. And at the end of that mock accreditation, we were satisfied that the beavers was going to perform optimally. And we also trained, gave additional training to the presiding officers and assistant presiding officers, and also deployed an additional staff from who are registration area technical assistants to intervene decisively and speedily if there's any malfunction of the beavers. Then in terms of in terms of the collation of results, you can see that by 8 p.m. on election day, over 94% of the results from the 2,445 polling units had already been uploaded into our INEC result viewing portal. And that gave Nigerians an opportunity to view firsthand what was going on at the level of the polling units. And we also trained the collation officers in relation to the trajectory provided in the new Electoral Act regarding the collation of results, that if there's a problem with the manually collated result, that the electronically collated result, electronically transmitted result, and the data from the beavers will now play a dominant role in making a determination which way to go.
Very well, we'll talk more about that electronic transmission, which the Independent National Electoral Commission put to use for the first time in a while. Well, let's talk to Mr. Kolawole now. Do you agree with Barrister Festus Okoye on his submission as far as the Ekiti governorship election is concerned? He had scored the Independent National Electoral Commission quite high.
I would agree to the extent of the performance of their duties pre-election and then during the elections. But there remains more to be done post-elections. And that is what forms part of the advocacy that Sarah put out, telling the INEC to undertake a prosecution of those who have been alleged, the incidents, various incidents, by the way, of vote buying and all that electoral malpractice, including inducement of voters. So I would agree to the extent that no election is perfect, and INEC has tried to do its best within the confines of the new Electoral Act. But there is more that needs to be done, particularly looking at Section 145 of the Electoral Act 2022, which empowers the legal officers of INEC to undertake prosecution of those who are found culpable of electoral malpractices. And so what is INEC doing, and what will INEC do? And that is why we've written to INEC to ensure that these allegations are not only investigated, but those who are found to be culpable are brought before a court for prosecution. And what this will do, Kerry, is that it will demonstrate the commitment and willingness, including the capability of INEC to hold free and fair elections come 2023. And that is without prejudice to the deterrent factor of such prosecutions. In the past, we have not seen INEC do that post-elections. So if they've done well pre-elections and during the elections, it is only good and fair, given the scope of the powers that INEC has and what elections are meant to be, that those individuals are brought before to face justice, so that would deter others in 2023, making sure that INEC is playing its role pre, during, and post-elections, as statutorily empowered by the Electoral Act.
Great. Let me ask you now, Mr. Okoye.
Yes.
He's brought up something that is a concern for everyone, and I think for the Commission as well. But he's also emphasized the need for the Commission to prosecute. So based on the Ekiti governorship election, how many people were arrested? And how soon do you plan to prosecute them?
Well, I will pose the question differently. This commission is ready to cooperate with all agencies of government to break the cycle of impunity relating to electoral malfeasance. Now, the commission has gone before the National Assembly to make a case for the establishment of an Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal to take care of the arrest, investigation, and prosecution of electoral offenders, to enable the commission concentrate fully on organizing, undertaking, and supervising election. Now, Section 145 of the Electoral Act gives the commission the power to prosecute electoral offenders. But it is a completely different organ, different agency, and different arm of government that is saddled with the responsibility of arrest and saddled with the responsibility of investigation. The commission does not have the power of arrest and does not have the power of investigation. Moreover, on election day, you have 4 officers of the commission at the level of the polling unit. A presiding officer who probably is a core member, and then assistant presiding officers who may likely be students of federal tertiary institutions. So we have collaborated with the ICPC, with the EFCC, in terms of making sure that they are deployed to the level of the polling units to deter electoral offenders. Now, if SERA, for instance, has done some investigation and have data and have established a prima facie case against any vote buyer, if that data is made available to the commission, definitely the commission will prosecute such electoral offenders. But the commission cannot prosecute until an arrest has been made, an investigation has been carried out, and a prima facie case has been established. Our officers who went for the election in Ekiti are yet to return. Some of them are just returning. And when they return, they will make a report in relation to the elections holistically and comprehensively. And then the commission will know what worked well, what did not work well, what we need to change, and then know also whether some electoral offenders were arrested, and if they were arrested, whether the police have investigated them, and if the police have investigated them, whether a report has been submitted to the commission. It's based on that report and a prima facie case having been established that the commission will now go and prosecute. The commission cannot go about arresting people on the streets that they have committed electoral infraction. No, there must be an arrest by the agencies saddled with that responsibility. There must be investigation by the agencies saddled with that responsibility. And then we'll have a report that has established a prima facie case, and then we can go and prosecute.
Well, this is beginning to sound, pardon me, like a broken record. I say this because there were previous elections that were held here where certain persons were arrested by the police. Is there no collaboration between the commission and the police? Were there any previous cases where you had charged people to court? Or are you still waiting until the Electoral Offences Commission is established?
No. So many people have been arrested and taken to court in places like Kano.
By the commission?
Yes, definitely, yes. And even in Akwa Ibom, some persons, high-profile persons have been convicted based on the prosecution undertaken by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The moment the police makes an arrest, carries out investigation, and a prima facie case is established, we go to court. And even in some instances, we investigated on our own, especially when some of the issues are documentary, and then we decided to go to court and charge some of the people to court. And so we have done that on our own.
Mr. Oluwadare, is this something you can confirm? I mean, you are SERAP, and you engage the Electoral Commission so much. You're even asking that they go ahead and prosecute those who are arrested. Now the commission is saying that this is not new. They've been prosecuting. As SERAP, can you confirm that?
I cannot confirm that we have public records of prosecutions or possible convictions by INEC. But that is beside the point. Mr. Okoye just confirmed that INEC itself had done some investigations and charged offenders to court. So it is not for INEC to investigate, as it were, but there are documents by way of video clips and even pictures that people have put out in the public domain. The least that INEC could do is to ask law enforcement agencies to do their job in investigating these allegations. And this is not only, this does not relate only to the police. There are many stakeholders involved as law enforcement agencies in the Ekiti state elections, for instance, and there are documents in the public domain as well. The least that they can do is to get in touch with these law enforcement agencies and to ensure that they investigate. And then INEC can do the prosecution. But INEC being a very important part of that stakeholder, they are the electoral powers, granted powers by both the Constitution and the Electoral Act, which incidentally created all of these offenses. Why can't they instigate that process? Why must INEC wait for the police to arrest, investigate, without then INEC doing nothing but waiting for the powers to prosecute? The powers inserted in Section 145 165 of the Electoral Act was not put there as a placeholder. It is meant to enable INEC to do its job of punishing offenders and creating a deterrent for others. And so INEC needs to take a step further to that power to ensure that the needful is done by all these law enforcement agents, not necessarily to subcontract that to civil society agencies. As part of investigation, individual citizens can provide information, of course, but naturally there are a lot of this in public domain already that the least INEC can do is to take this forward. And then when we see such convictions, which I believe will be public in nature, Nigerians can take a cue from that and rate INEC high or low, depending on what they see in their post-election functions. We are yet to see more of that, sadly so.
Mr. Okoye, I'm sure you'd like to respond to that.
Yes, I really believe that my learned colleague, one of the things you need to do for the commission is that since you have done some investigation, if you make available to the commission the reports of your investigation, and if we believe that a prima facie case has been established, we are going to take a cue from that, and I assure you that we are going to also prosecute. Some of the security agencies that worked in the Ekiti governorship election have not even returned to their base. So I think that it will not be right at this point in time, even without the security agencies returning to their base, issuing their report, making their report available to us, to be giving the commission an ultimatum to prosecute. No, you don't. Prosecution is a very, very tedious process. The moment you don't do a proper arrest, the moment you do not do proper investigation, and the moment you do not establish a prima facie case against an individual, and then you go to the court, your case will be dead on arrival. So when we go to court, we want to see a situation where we will make out a very, very good case against an individual who has committed electoral infraction, and then we get a conviction. That is the ultimate. And we also want a situation where Nigerians will break the cycle of impunity that has pervaded our electoral process. And the only way we can really break this cycle of impunity is to saddle a completely different agency with the task of arrest, with the task of investigation, and also with the task of prosecution. So that even on certain offenses, on election day, they can even set up a mobile court to deal with electoral offenders that are arrested at the moment. Because one of the challenges we have is that some of the police officers, for instance, who go to work in Ekiti for this particular election are drawn from other jurisdictions. Immediately after the election, they will leave for their jurisdictions. And then some of the people that have been arrested, when you now want to bring them as witnesses, some of them are in Bronu, some of them are in Kano, some of them are in Imo, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, a matter will be struck out for lack of diligent prosecution. We don't want that type of thing to happen. That's why we are canvassing that a separate agency, that an electoral offences commission and tribunal should be established to deal with this particular matter, so that the commission can concentrate fully on organizing, undertaking, and supervising elections, and also registering voters and doing some other things that the law has empowered us to do.
So what's your assessment of the performance of security agents at the Ekiti governorship election?
Well, the collaboration between the commission and the security agencies was very, very good. We had series of meetings with the various security agencies at the national level under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. At the state level, the meetings were also replicated. At the local government level, the meetings were replicated. And so there was some level of synergy between all the security agencies involved in the Ekiti governorship election. And we want to see this collaboration replicated during the Osun governorship election and going forward.
But there are allegations against some of the security agents there that they were complicit. That in front of some security agents, vote buying was ongoing and they did nothing about it. Is that cooperation? Can you even confirm that? Or is that you want to, is the commission unaware of something like that?
Well, I don't have any verifiable evidence relating to this. But one thing I want to say is that the atmosphere at the level of the polling unit on election day is very, very fragile. And the slightest thing you do on election day will trigger a breakdown of law and order at the level of the polling unit, and nobody wants to do that. But that does not obviate the fact that security agencies at the level of the polling unit cannot see an electoral infraction being committed and not do something about it. But I don't have any evidence relating to them engaged in electoral malfeasance.
All right, Mr. Kolawole, if you look at the Ekiti governorship election, Reports suggest that there was an improvement in voter turnouts. What do you think was responsible for that?
It could be a lot of factors could be responsible for this, which also traces back to the issue that we've discussed earlier about extending voter registration. Possibly people had more reason to turn out to vote. Well, possibly there's an increase in civic participation. Possibly the trust divide between government and people will have increased, or it may just be a matter of choice of candidates and political parties. But whatever the reason for that is, what we need to do now is to build on that and sustain that so that we have a better output in the 2023 elections. 84 million Nigerians is too low a figure to score ourselves high in civic participation in aspects of those who have registered the vote, which again speaks to the need for INEC to ensure that this extension is made in the interest of Nigerians, that we have as much people captured as electorate as possible, and we have as near possible as practically possible. We have a true representative democracy when we have individuals who register to vote. So while we can say that the voter turnout in Ekiti is a bit more than what we've seen in the past, we need to see a progression. And looking at analytics from the data that INEC has, in 2015, we had 69 million voters. And in 2019, the second term of President Muhammadu Buhari, we had 84 million voters. And it is expected now, towards the 2023 elections, that we are expecting possibly 5, 8, or 10 million additional voters, depending on whoever is making those predictions. Is it not that important now to make sure that we extend that time to capture as many people as possible so that they can capture their votes? And really, Mr. Okoye did speak to the issue of those coming to the centers, not being people who are getting their PVCs. Really, that appears contradictory, looking at the data on the INEC website. As of 30th May 2020, when we filed that suit in which this interim order was granted, the INEC itself had said that more than 6.5 million Nigerians had newly registered, out of which 4.5 million were youths. So what does that speak? Does that not show that the level of civic participation is increasing? And the reasons can be many, just like we have spoken about Ekiti. It might be due to choice of candidates. It might be due to the primaries that just took place. It might just be due to even INEC's own advocacy to get people to register working. So why would INEC advocate for more people to register, educate people on their rights to register, and then close the gap, as it were, to stop people from registering? Which is why this Ekiti state is a sort of a litmus test that we should learn from, so that we have a very good improved performance in 2023. And I hope INEC takes a cue from this in the interest of Nigerian electorates, even those who are to be elected, and even the democracy itself.
Very well, then let's talk about the electronic transmission of results now. Nigerians looked forward to it. With the Ekiti state governorship election, how smooth or otherwise was it? Especially because there were concerns, during the Electoral Act amendment process, there were concerns as to whether or not we had the network coverage for it. So how smooth or otherwise was this process? And did it cut across every local government area of that state?
Exactly, it cuts across every local government area. As at 8 p.m. on election day, I said 94% of all the results had come in. And you can see how quickly the commission even declared the result of the election. So as far as the commission is concerned, when we said we had the capacity to transmit results electronically, we knew what we were talking about. So I think that what we have done in Ekiti will at least energize the confidence of the Nigerian people on the ability of the Independent National Electoral Commission to deploy technology in the electoral process. We are going to continue to deploy technology to obviate what I call pernicious human interference in the electoral process. But we are going to also deploy technology carefully and slowly to make sure that whatever technology we deploy in the electoral process is a technology that is robust, and also is a technology that will serve the interests of the electoral process and the interests of the Nigerian people. Our desire and our determination is to increase voter participation in the electoral process. Our desire is to make sure that when people go to vote, that at the end of the day, their votes count. And it is by so doing that we can conveniently and comprehensively establish and reestablish the Nigerian people with the electoral process. And for the commission, we see this new energy, this new enthusiasm, and also this new determination to come out and register as an affirmation of the fact that the commission is doing certain things that the Nigerian people believe will improve the electoral process. And so we'll continue to serve the Nigerian people, and we'll continue to do whatever it takes to make sure that Nigerian people get to participate in the electoral process.
So with the BVAS and the introduction of the electronic transmission of voters, did it seem to you that the voters understood and accepted the process? Did it make the process smoother for the voters?
Oh, definitely. The Nigerian people have accepted the fact that the BVAS has come to stay, and that the BVAS will make it impossible for identity thieves to near any of our polling units. You can see...
Was there any record of something like that?
Of people coming to... Yeah, of course, there were some people who came to the polling units with an affidavit. Some people came with the temporary voters card and so on and so forth. And we simply asked them to go, that they couldn't vote. But everybody who came to the polling unit understood the fact that BVAS was the in thing, and that the BVAS was going to be used for purposes of accreditation. And they have accepted it as the way to go.
All right, let me just go to Mr. Kolawole for his closing statement as we round off now. It would seem that INEC is confident about the electronic transmission of results and the BVAS, but then there are concerns as to other areas as we head towards the 2023 general elections. What's your thought on that?
What INEC needs to do is to build the confidence of the people. And I like that Mr. Okoye has alluded to that fact. And there are many ways INEC can demonstrate that capacity. So it is not enough, as it is said in law, for justice to be done, but it must be seen to have been done. So INEC needs to build that trust of people to believe that INEC can do it. And that is why with the introduction of BVAS, it is also important that this CVR is continued. That is one way. The prosecution I've mentioned earlier too is also another way for INEC to demonstrate that commitment. And INEC needs to do this deliberately towards earning, as it were, the trust of Nigerians as we build up towards the 2023 election. So the issue will not be about whether electoral sanction will work or not. It is about the trust of the people in INEC.
Very well then. Mr. Okoye, you have a closing statement in 30 seconds.
Well, we will continue to build on the successes we have recorded, and we'll continue to add value to the electoral process. We ask for patience, and we ask for calm, and we ask for the understanding of the Nigerian people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Festus Okoye, for coming to speak with us on Politics Today.
Thank you so much.
And also thank you to Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, who is the Deputy Director of SERA. Thank you very much. Well, that's Politics Today. Thanks for your time. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.